The other big talk, and I'll move through this quickly, was Elder Rasband talking about the family, a proclamation to the world. It was the 30th birthday. We touched on this last newscast, and we wondered what they would do, what they would say. Would they dare canonize it? I think most of us thought that would not happen, and it did not happen. But in a way, it was kind of solidified, if I can say that. So Ronald A. Rasband, the Family Proclamation, Words from God, right? That's the title right there. And, I think for the sake of time, I don't need to get into his entire talk. He basically shored up the nuclear family, heterosexual marriage, husband, wife, everything else is incomplete. It is, not the way God has ordained it. And I really don't want to talk about what was in his talk or is in the Family Proclamation. I want to talk about why you don't have to give it the weight and importance and let them use it like a sword that a lot of people think that you do, because you don't. I will show you that. What does the LDS Church think a family is? When I Googled LDS family, these are all pictures from the church website. It is a mother, father, and children, some extended family, no single even parents, and certainly no same-sex parents. It is a very specific kind of a family, a nuclear family from the 1950s. And I think everything we heard from Rasband and Oakes, because he also talked about the proclamation and he talked about have children right now, we've got to do it. And it's all just back to this 1950s nuclear family. So last time we talked about an article that had appeared in the church news about how the proclamation came to be. And we talked about how that article suddenly disappeared within 24 hours of it having shown up in the church news. And we all looked for it. I said, sorry, it's not there anymore. It was written by an intern, somebody who had worked for the Daily Universe at BYU and was now interning there for the church news. The article just disappeared. And we're not going to read through it, but it was a lengthy article called The Events That Led to the Creation of the Family, a Proclamation to the World. And it went through everything. It went through the steps that they took, the meetings that they had. They wrestled with it. They eventually talked to the women about it a few days before they were going to announce it. Here's this whole article. Well, my good friend, Generally Unquotable, if you have not discovered her channel, she is fantastic. And we collaborate on temple stuff. And today she texted me, or yesterday, and she said, when I was listening to Elder Rasband's talk, I noticed that almost word for word, paragraph for paragraph, he seemed to be quoting that missing talk that I just went through. She said, it sounded so familiar. I knew I'd heard it before. I knew I'd heard you talk about it on the newscast. I knew I'd read those screenshots. And so she actually put out her episode this morning, if you want to go check that out. And she goes through it. A lot of his talk is that missing article.
So what happened? Did they accidentally put his talk up?
I can't understand. Again, I am just a conspiracy theorist. Did an intern write his talk? Did his talk somehow get put up as an article? I have no idea. But
is he dying for a talk because he can't come up with an idea? He sees the article. He says, I like it. I'm going to use this for my talk. Yeah. Yank it.
Take that down. Yeah, take that down. I'm going to use this. But yeah, if you go through it, watch her little clip this morning. It was on her October 6th. She puts out something every day with current news, kind of short tidbit. She discovered this, that a lot of his talk is based on this article written by a kid. So I don't know what to think about that, but that's kind of my first red flag with an apostle telling us how important the proclamation is, how it came to be, and why we're supposed to, pay attention to it in our own lives, to the point where often family members are hurt. I mean, if you went on social media, faithful and post-Mormon, there were people concerned about their LGBTQ friends, family members. Everybody was talking about practicing self-care. There's a lot of hard things to hear in this talk, and it could have been copied from somebody who was an intern.
Can I say, just to make it clear, that the talk and the article give the fake history of how the proclamation on the family came to be. This is the whitewashed Mormon version of how it came to be. It has nothing about the truth.
Nope.
The political machinations behind the scenes that were going on, and the fact that it was it was ripping off the Moral Majority and Jerry Falwell with their Family Manifesto.
Yep, and that's what I'm going to show next. So I wanted to know, we all said, are they going to canonize this? They didn't canonize it, but I wanted to keep track, and this is from the transcript of his talk, the words that he used to describe what is this proclamation? What is it, right? It says the proclamation has a divine origin, so we must treat it with the reverence deserving of words from God. So it's divine in origin. It is words from God, okay?
Yes.
They prayerfully turn to the Lord, talking about the apostles, for what they should say and how they should say it. So the Lord is giving them instructions on what belongs in the Family Proclamation. A proclamation to the world by divine design, okay? It has a divine design. The proclamation with its revelatory words, so words that are revelatory, they stopped short of saying it's a revelation, but they said the words in it are revelatory.
Isn't it clear that he came out there with the goal or the assignment of saying everything he could about this document?
Yeah,
going
just
all
short.
the way up to the cliff of saying you can't say it's scripture,
right?
And you can't say it's revelation,
right? But everything else,
that, knock yourself out.
And the kitchen sink. Yeah, that's why I had to grab these, and these are right out of the transcript. And I might have even missed a few. There were quite a number of them. It also said it felt very positive that we had members of the Quorum of the 12 that were receiving revelation. Okay. So it itself is not a revelation, but the words in it, the things that the quorum working together to put in it were received by revelation. Okay.
I think it pretty fine.
Yeah, I think so too. He then read the proclamation in its entirety. And I think he's talking about President Nelson and President Oaks were the main kind of driving forces as he's telling it in the proclamation. As the Lord has said, whether by mine own voice or by the voice of my servants, it is the same.
Yes.
That's alluding that this is the Lord's voice in the proclamation, right?
Yes.
He also said the Lord and his covenant path, the teachings of the proclamation were revealed by our Lord Jesus Christ to his apostles then and now. So
you can tell this is the whole point of the talk, can't you?
I think so. Yeah, these were peppered every single time they brought it up. And then the final thing that he said that people are kind of laying bets on, are they going to take this out of the printed version of the talk? The proclamation on the family is, as President Hinckley stated, doctrine. Okay. So doctrine, revelatory words, divine design. I mean, it sounds like it's a document from God. Would you guys read it any other way?
I think he got this assignment from Elder Oaks. I'm just guessing. By the way, this guy, Elder Rasband, he's the one who should have been talking about Lesotho.
He actually should have, because he's the only one that actually on his personal page put out, some kind of a condolence. Anyway, so I was very curious, and I was glad I put that all together, just so that everybody can know what the church is claiming this document is, right? All of these amazing words that makes it sound like it was crafted on high. Well, I will tell you, if somebody received a revelation for this document, it wasn't the apostles or prophet of the Mormon Church. It was Jerry Falwell.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Falwell, not Faldwell. He was the leader of the moral majority, right? You probably remember this, don't you, RFM? Bill might be too
1980s,
young.
absolutely.
Yep, that's right. So Jerry Falwell, the Christian right, the moral majority, they wanted to weigh in on court cases, right? Just like the LDS Church. They were seeing the family was being eroded, degraded. Same-sex marriage was on the table, and they needed to put something together, something out that could state their views, their goals, the things that the revelations they had received, I guess, from God about what a family should be. And so we are talking about 1988. Does that even the font look familiar? The Family Manifesto. This was put out. I know, this is crazy. So we're not going to go into the whole thing, but like I said, I want people to be able to be armed with this knowledge. If family members or friends try to use the Family Proclamation as a sword, you can simply show them this picture and say, it's kind of interesting about that proclamation, right? 7 years prior. And you can freeze this and you can go over point by point. It is so similar. In some cases, word for word. Everything that the Family Manifesto says, marriage, man and woman, nuclear family. We call upon governments and peoples to protect this by divine design. This is the family is the unit of society. I mean, you can just go through it. These are only a few things. And like I said, you can freeze on here and you can go through it. If there was a revelation, if this was from God with all of these words that we read before, Jerry Falwell got it first. Right. And I even had somebody say, because I put an episode out about this in the comments, well, you know what? Sometimes God gives other religions light and truth, and then we use it. Okay, that is not how this was portrayed, not with the wrestling and the revelatory words and the praying and the hoping and the receiving of the divine. No, they simply took this and they said, we're going to put one of these up ourselves. And they did use it, the Family Proclamation, going forward after 1995 when it was revealed to the public at the General Women's meeting. And we talked about this already, how the women had no input, did not know. They used it in a number of legal proceedings. Another thing.
So the timing is this, right? 1988 is the Family Manifesto.
Yes.
And then 1995 is the LDS Proclamation on the family.
Correct. That's it. So good 7 years that God, put those words in the Christian Right Moral Majorities Court before the LDS Church felt that they needed to wrestle with this and put something out. So that I just want everyone to be aware of that. You can dig into that and look at that as much as you can. But I just think this picture here, right there, is worth 1,000 words, right? I've been tempted to publish the Family Manifesto and say, I just love to reread the proclamation and see if anyone will notice the difference. I don't know. They might. Another thing that I thought was very interesting, and I kind of made this post about it. Why did Elder Rasband change the wording of the Family Proclamation in his General Conference talk? I feel like this whole episode of the newscast is about words and wiggle words. The actual proclamation says that a father is to preside over his family. If this is the doctrine, why not state it? So let's talk about what he actually did say. He said, Elder Rasband, we read in the proclamation, fathers are to preside in love and righteousness, and mothers are primarily responsible for the nurture of their children. Fathers are to preside in love and righteousness. What does it say? Can you read that, RFM? What does it say in the actual proclamation?
It says, by divine design, fathers are to preside over their families in love and righteousness.
Right.
He left it out.
What would you say is the difference? And why would you say he left out the word over? To me, and I had my best friend from high school, English major, editor extraordinaire, text me about this, and she said, there is a world of difference between those two meanings, presiding in love and righteousness and presiding over their family in love and righteousness. What do either of you think about that? I think that's a huge tell. They left it out for a reason.
Doesn't it seem like the strangest thing that he just spent an immense amount of time telling you how much this was a revelatory process, how much the Family Proclamation is doctrine, how much God was involved in the process, only to take God's words and adapt them so as not to be as offensive as God was.
Right. That's it.
Really good point. This comes in the part of his talk where he's emphasizing how equal men and women are in the Mormon church. Is there anybody else out there that's still believing that? Are you ever not going to fall for that? But he's trying to make that point. They're equal, and he's quoting the equal stuff that's in there, right? And it's in this context, by the way, that he omits the phrase preside over their families. You see, the actual sentence is, by divine design, fathers are to preside over their families in love and righteousness. He took out over their families, right? Mm-hmm. So it says, by divine design, fathers are to preside in love and righteousness. So we get over the family. He took it out because it conflicts with the message he's trying to give. This is what this is what apostles in the church are reduced to, is changing the wording of what they claim is divine revelation so it doesn't conflict with the message they're telling the members of the church in General Conference.
Yep, that's it. And it's a very hot button, right? It's a equality, separate but equal. The woman nurtures, if they had their way, every woman would be a trad wife. And it's very difficult to read that. That is one of the problems that people have with this document, is the relegation of women and girls to a certain role. And
one other thing, Rebecca, is that when this is printed, it will probably have ellipses there. If it doesn't, God help him. But
yeah, I'm not sure what they'll do.
But when we're listening to it, we cannot hear the ellipses.
And he didn't go like this. He didn't do air quotes. So they very quickly...
Or say ...
Yeah. ... On the faithful side of things, put out, the next thing he said, which was, preside does not mean dominate, and nurture does not mean a secondary role. And this is where my editor friend texted me. She goes, preside, absolutely. Preside over means dominate. That's exactly what it means. To preside over something means to exercise authority or control over it, to act as a leader, a chief officer of a group, of meeting. Of course, they're talking in a corporate structure, but
that's why they call it the president. Whether it's the president of the United States or the president of the church, that's the guy at the top or the lady at the top. But it means that you're the one who has the authority.
Yep, the final say, and that's important.
In the temple, I know it's been removed, but it was there for a long time. To the women promise to hearken unto their husband as he hearkened unto the Lord. I'm pretty sure that means that the guy's in charge and it's the woman's job to listen.
Yeah. You could only access, Christ, the blessings, through a man. And again, I just ask any parents of little girls, do you really want to raise your little girl with this idea that there eventually will be, someone else that has a say over you and, your gut feelings, your intuition? He tried to make it better by telling this story about his lovely wife. She seems like a lovely person. He says, let me share a personal story. My wife and I learned to work better and to share it being equal partners after one day when I decided to make an important decision without consulting her. Right? I don't know what that is, but it sounds like it was a big decision. And if you adhere to the proclamation,
he bought a little red sports car.
Yeah, you can do that. That's the thing. If you're presiding over, you can make any decision unilaterally. You do not have to check with anybody else. My actions surprised her. Did it? If you've read the proclamation, it took her off guard and it put her in a very difficult situation. So that says to me that she would have been completely opposed had she been consulted. Had they worked it out together.
Very difficult situation. I read as she was mad as hell.
Exactly. He was probably on the couch, right? So afterwards, whatever. After he got his way, after he made his decision, after he moved them to Missouri, to Adirondack, whatever it was that he did, right? Afterwards, she put her hands on my shoulders, maybe more like this, right? And firmly said, Ron, please never do that to me again. And then he goes on to talk about how they worked together after that. But my co-host Landon pointed out the fact that she knew she had to beg that means that she knew he could do that. He could do that anytime that he wanted via the proclamation. So to me, that story was actually kind of disturbing. Yeah. So my last slide is the proclamation. Somebody, I'm sure you guys have all seen this before, where they have, marked out all the prophetic words, all the words of revelation, the revelatory, the, God's mouth, my ear. And when you get rid of 99.9% of this document, it can say the family, all human beings are divine and essential and accepted. Family is love. Love is love. So while we didn't go into everything about the proclamation, I just want everyone to know what it is and what it isn't, and use that as you will.
That's a doctrine I can get behind.
That's right.